On today's repertoire we have the semi-final GX era archetype and the semi-final archetype that is the part of the rank 10 marathon. We're taking a look at the Crystal Beast archetype used by Johan Andersen from, again, the absolutely lovely GX Season 3. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I just can't help myself. But yeah, this is an archetype that kind of started the gimmick of monsters being in the spell and trap zone way before the Pump Princess and the V-Jump, the Cubic Seed, were introduced in the game, and of course they were the main inspiration for Artifacts, which is the only other archetype with a gimmick such as this. So yeah, as for the actual monster lineup, well, all of their, most of their main deck monster lineup have shared effects. So we shall be taking a look at most of them within a single montage, as I like to call it. So we start off with their first 8 monsters, if you can believe it. Those being Crystal Beast, Ruby Carbuncle, Amethyst Cat, Emerald Tortoise, Cobalt Eagle, Topaz Tiger, Amber Mammoth, Sapphire Pegasus, and lastly Rainbow Dragon, the Zenith Crystal Beast. All of these share the following effect segment. Which is, if this face-up card is destroyed in the monster zone, you can place it in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell instead of sending it to the graveyard. Now this is where their original effects come in. If now for Ruby Carbuncle, that is, if it is special summoned, you can special summon as many Crystal Beast monster cards from your spell and trap zones. And then we have Amethyst Cat, which can attack directly but at the cost of its attack being halved. Emerald Tortoise can once per turn target a monster you control that attacked this turn to change it to defense position. Cobalt Eagle can once per turn target a face-up Crystal Beast card you control and return it to the top of the deck. Topaz Tiger, when it attacks, gains 400 attack until the damage step only. When another face-up Crystal Beast monster you control is destroyed, is targeted for an attack target, you can redirect the attack target to Amber Mammoth instead. And Sapphire Pegasus has the effect: when it's summoned, you can place a Crystal Beast monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard to your face-up spell and trap zone as a continuous spell card. And Rainbow Dragon, the Zenith Crystal Beast, has 2 effects actually. First being that during the attack declaration of a Crystal Beast monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and its other effect is that you can banish this card from that it's treated as a continuous spell card to special summon a level 4 or lower Crystal Beast monster from your deck, but its effects are negated, and if you do, add 1 ultimate crystal monster from your deck to your hand. And all of these effects can, and you can only use each of these effects once per turn. So yeah, very impressive, should I say, array of effects, because impressive in a way that most of these are not that particularly good in the grand scheme of things in today's game. The only ones that actually matter are the Rainbow Dragon's effect, the Ruby Carbuncle effect, and the Sapphire Pegasus effect, and all of the other ones are pretty subpar and underwhelming. Tortoise by far being the worst of the bunch, because this is by far one of the most specific battle position changing effects I have ever seen in the game. Amethyst Cat is like one of those things that is bad by the standard of Duel Links. And Cobalt Eagle's effect can be okay in a very specific situation, but it's still not considered too good. And Tiger is very reminiscent of 2005 and 6, when these kinds of effects were considered good. But hey, at least the attack boost is better than Garrett Holgan, if anything. And Amber Mammoth's attack redirecting effect is not relevant, since it does not have the effect is that you can that your opponent cannot target another monster as an attack target except this one, meaning if you control 2 Amber Mammoth, the opponent could not declare an attack. So yeah, the only one of your primary playmakers are the Rainbow Dragon, the Zenith Crystal Beast, Amber, no, not Amber Mammoth. I continuously go towards that monster when I want to pronounce that. I meant Sapphire Pegasus. That one I meant, and Ruby Carbuncle, because those monsters provide some unprecedented swarming for the archetype, and due to the fact that Rainbow Dragon, the Zenith Crystal Beast, is also a level 8 monster, it means you can also use him as bait for a trade-in and as rank 8 fodder. And due to him having a special summoning condition, and due to him being a crystal beast in the name, you can basically avoid running one of the monsters you do not feel comfortable with out of the basic 7 crystal beasts, because you need at least 7 with different names if you want to summon one of their boss monsters, that being the original Rainbow Dragon, which is a level 10 with 4000 attack and 0 defense. And this card is always treated as an ultimate crystal card to tie in the thing that Zenith Crystal Beast was talking about, where you can search an ultimate crystal card. And Rainbow Dragon has the effect that it cannot be normal summoned or set, and must be special summoned from your hand by having 7 Crystal Beast cards with different names on your field and or graveyard. This card cannot activate its following effects the turn it is special summoned. Quick effect: you can send all face-up Crystal Beast monsters you control to the graveyard to have this card gain 1000 attack for each. And the second effect is that you can banish all Crystal Beast cards from your graveyard to shuffle all cards on the field into the deck. This was a tolerable monster, at least for its first effect, because it's a level 10 with a okay-ish summoning condition, especially nowadays, because you can like overlay 2 of them for a rank 10 monster of your choice, and on the attack boost can even turn him into a bigger beatstick, which was alright back in the day. And considering the consistency of Crystal Beast is much more impressive than it was back in the day, Rainbow Dragon is surprisingly decently easy to bring out, and you should consider having one or 2 of them in your deck if you want to, well, you know, make a build specifically built around them, unless you're building some sort of an extra link variant or something. So yeah, their other boss monster is Rainbow Dark Dragon. This card is also treated as an ultimate crystal card, has the exact same stats as the original Rainbow Dragon, except it's a dark attribute this time around. And it cannot be normal summoned or set, and must first be special summoned by banishing 7 dark monsters with different names from your graveyard, and you can banish all other dark monsters from the field and or graveyard. This card gains 500 attack for each card banished this way. This is essentially a secondary version of Rainbow Dragon, although the special summoning condition is actually much easier, due to the fact that it lets you banish any any 7 dark monsters with different names from the graveyard. But all the other effects, it's simply a beatstick, as in the original was also offered some removal on the side, even though said removal can actually massively backfire if you're if you do not time it right, and the opponent might have the first chance to recover and beat you to the ground if you pull it off. But as for this thing, it's like I said, it's just a beatstick, and within the archetype it does not see all that much play, because the field spell, yeah, this card requires a certain field spell to be active within the archetype to be even brought out properly, is not that worth playing. So yeah, you might as well avoid this one unless you're building a deck built around dark monsters that need this thing for some reason to be in their deck. So yeah. And now we move on to their final 2 monsters, which are pendulum monsters. First of which we have Crystal Master, which is a level 3 spellcaster, scale 5, and its pendulum effect is that you cannot, your opponent cannot target ultimate crystal monsters or crystal beast cards you control with card effects. And its monster effect is that you contribute this card to add an ultimate crystal monster, crystal beast monster, or crystal spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Yeah, this used to be an absolute nightmare to read before the ultimate crystal erratas came around, because the original Japanese name of the Rainbow Dragon series of monsters is Ultimate Crystal God, and because for some reason Konami likes to leave things out when translating stuff. They just simply renamed the cards to Rainbow Dragon and Rainbow Dark Dragon. And this used to be an absolute mess of a card to read. Check out the early copies of the OCG versions of these cards if you do not believe me. But as this thing is, it's a simple consistency boosting card, and it's not even once per turn. And due to its scale level, it's easily pendulum summonable in the archetype. So yeah, it's a great card to consider. Not that much same can be said about the other monster, which is also the final main deck monster, that being Crystal Keeper. This is a level 4 warrior with 1500 attack and 1800 defense, scale 2. Pendulum effect is that each turn, the first time an ultimate crystal monster or crystal beast card you control will be destroyed by a card effect, that turn it is not destroyed. And the second, and its monster effect is that if a crystal beast monster you control battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation, quick effect, you contribute this card from your hand or face up from the field. Your battling monster's attack and defense become double its original attack and defense during the damage step calculation only, but it is destroyed during the end of the damage step. Both of these effects are theoretically fine, but why the hell would you want to destroy the monster after applying the attack boost effect, which basically means this thing will only be mostly used for its second effect, which is actually decent protection, at least for the time this card came out, which was not that long ago, but still long enough to be called some time ago. So yeah, it's searchable by Rhoda if you ever so feel like it. It's a fire warrior monster, meaning it has some kind of synergy with Fire Fists, if anything. So yeah, I guess you can you can play it like that, but it's perfectly fine if you decide to run this just because they are crystal pendulum monsters. So yeah. Anyway, that was their last main deck monster, and now let's move on to their final monster period, the level 12 fusion monster Rainbow Overdragon. This one requires 7 Crystal Beast monsters as a material, has the exact same stats as the original Rainbow Dragon, always treated as an ultimate crystal card, and must either be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing a level 10 ultimate crystal monster, in which case you do not use polymerization. And once per turn you can banish a Crystal Beast monster from your graveyard to have this card gain attack equal to the banished monster's attack until the end of this turn, and quick effect, you contribute this fusion summoned card to shuffle all cards on the field into the deck. This is essentially a very similar effect to the original Rainbow Dragon. The second effect is essentially like the exact same thing as the original Rainbow Dragon, although the activation condition is a bit different, even though it prevents the card from using the effect again if you manage to revive it. And you can basically make your journey towards this card a bit easier if you decide to tribute the original Rainbow Dragon. And of course, the archetype does have a fusion enabling card to basically allow you to get to this card a bit easier, which is not that perfectly viable because the card in question is a trap card, and it has a very specific activation condition, which makes me wonder what they were thinking when they designed the card. Maybe if it was like an archetypal, I don't know, brilliant fusion. Yeah, that sounds like a best thing to do, because brilliant fusion is banned. Let's reel it down and basically make it like an archetypal miracle fusion, if anything, or a Viacroid connection zone. So yeah, then I would have maybe called the card worth being summoned with the 7 Crystal Beast monster requirement. But as it is right now, it's very similar to the original dragon, and if you can make the original dragon, you can basically make this thing as well. So yeah, it's a preference type of card, and then if anything, so yeah, run by preference. Next up, we move on to their back row, first of which we have Ancient City Rainbow Ruins, one of their first 2 field spells. And you can have this many Crystal Beast cards. You must have this many Crystal Beast cards in your spell and trap zone to activate and resolve these effects. 1 or more. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects. 2 or more. Once per turn, including the opponent's turn, you can halve the battle damage you take. 3 or more. During either player's turn, when a spell or trap is activated, you can send one Crystal Beast monster you control to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. 4 or more. Once per turn during your main phase, you can draw 1 card. And 5. Once per turn during your main phase, you can target a Crystal Beast card in your spell and trap zone and special summon that target. The fact that this thing is actually from the GX era and it came out in the exact same set as Otherworld DA Zone with the Alien spell, field spell, pretty much shows how much of a powerful card this was back in the day. The first effect is basically an instant protection to the field spell, and it's the one that is going to be most active, so it's a very good thing to have around. The second effect is pretty underwhelming and meh, so you mostly ignore it, but although it can help out on quite a few occasions. The third effect is pretty decent, although it requires you to tribute Crystal Beasts in monster form, which is not something you tend to like doing. The fourth effect is literally a +1, so it's a good effect by default. And the fifth effect is a very handy way to basically continue on your field presence and free up your back row space for your other spells and traps. It also triggers Ruby Carbuncle's effect, so yeah, this is a very good field spell. And the next field spell is not so good, because this is Advanced Darkness, folks, or Advanced Dark, as it's also called. All Crystal Beast monsters on the field and in the graveyard become dark. If an ultimate crystal monster attacks, negate the effects of the attack target during that damage calculation, during that battle phase, and during the damage calculation, if a Crystal Beast monster you control battles and you would take damage, you can send a Crystal Beast monster from your deck to the graveyard and you take no battle damage from that battle. The only thing that I could consider remotely useful of this field spell is the fact that it allows you to somewhat set up the graveyard with Crystal Beast monsters, so you can summon one of the Rainbow Dragons by employing their summoning condition. And the first effect has the potential to be like alright, but the fact of the matter is that when it comes to the battle phase, the opponent's field might already be clean of monsters that the Rainbow Dragon might be willing to get over, but I guess it's sort of there if you want to experiment with it, because it's a legitimately good shutdown effect, and it only works on Rainbow Dragons, which again are not summoned too often. So yeah, it's a pretty okay card, but the first effect is not going to go off too often, and the second effect only again works on Crystal Beast monsters, which is kind of understandable since it was supposed to help you to get out the Rainbow Dragon first. So yeah, it's kind of like a very mixed bag of effects, and I should state that you should run this by preference, so you go do that. Now moving on to their other back row, first of which we have Rainbow Bridge. Add a crystal spell from your deck to your hand. Yeah, it's pretty simple, short, and pretty good. Run 3. Same can be said about Crystal Bond. Add a Crystal Beast monster from your deck to your hand, and place one Crystal Beast monster with a different name from your deck face up in your spell and trap as a continuous spell card, and you can only activate one of these per turn. Like I said, you run 3 at all times, and it actually combos well with so many of their cards, first of which being Crystal Beacon. Special summon a Crystal Beast monster from your deck, and you must have 2 or more Crystal Beast cards in your spell and trap zone to activate them and resolve this effect. Simple enough, it enables Ruby's effect and can special summon the Crystal Beast you might need that is still buried in your deck if you're going for a Rainbow Dragon build. And not to mention, you can basically go from 1 to 4 monsters if Pegasus is involved by using this thing's effect, and you summon Ruby with this thing. So yeah, it's a very good card, and you should always consider running 3 of these. Next up we have Crystal Blessing. Target up to 2 Crystal Beast monsters in your graveyard and place those targets in face-up spell and trap zones as a continuous spell card. not exactly the most versatile option out of the bunch, but it's good enough as it can basically set up your plays for Crystal Beacon, for many of the other cards which you still haven't talked about, and consider running one just for the easy accessibility, if anything. And one of the cards that actually benefits from this is Rare Value. If you control 2 or more Crystal Beast cards in your spell and trap zone, your opponent chooses 1 Crystal Beast card in your spell and trap zone, you send it to the graveyard, and if you do, draw 2 cards. It's actually one of the better archetypal draw cards, with one slight downside, and that is that the opponent chooses what Crystal Beast you sent to the graveyard, because if it didn't, then this card would be leagues better. As it is right now, the opponent can actually declare a Crystal Beast monster which you absolutely do not want to be in the graveyard, and then you'll end up losing, because I doubt the cards that you draw would be enough to turn the tide of the duel around. So yeah, the name is a bit weird, so you cannot search it, so I would advise running 1 or 2 of these at most. Crystal Abundance is another normal spell card, and it says that you can send 4 Crystal Beast cards from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard, to send all cards on the field to the graveyard, then special summon as many Crystal Beast monsters as possible from your graveyard, up to the number of cards your opponent controls that were sent to the graveyard by this effect. This is by far one of the more interesting field nukes in existence. First of all, yeah, the summoning condition is a bit specific, but it actually plays well with some of the cards we've talked about before that can set up your back row. But what you get for it is actually extremely worth it, as the effect does not even target or destroy, meaning it dodges a lot of floating effects or destruction effects which might activate, and not to mention you get the monsters back onto the field in monster form upon applying this effect. So yeah, the activation condition is, like I said, a bit specific, but you cannot afford not to run at least 1 or 2 of these, because it's actually searchable with Crystal Bridge or Rainbow Bridge. Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to mention. Next up we have Crystal Promise. Target a Crystal Beast card in your spell and trap zone and special summon that target. It's essentially a monster reborn for the back row. It can trigger Ruby, but that's the most specific utility I've ever come across here, and it's one of the more tolerable plays you can make involving this thing, so I would not recommend running more than 1. Next up we have Crystal Release, which is an equip spell that says equip only to a Crystal Beast monster. It gains 800 attack, and when this card is sent to the graveyard, from the field to the graveyard, you can place a Crystal Beast monster from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. I would really love this if it didn't say when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, because it will make the card leagues better than it is right now, due to the fact that this thing can actually miss timing if you are using the equipped monster as an extra deck material. But yeah, it's only triggers upon like the monster getting destroyed by battle or card effect, and yeah, you all know how timing works, and it's not pretty. Next up we have Crystal Tree, a continuous spell that says each time a Crystal Beast monster is placed in either player's spell and trap zone, place 1 crystal counter on this card. You can send on this card to the graveyard, take a number of Crystal Beast monsters from your deck or equal to the number of crystal counters that were on this card, and place them in your face up in your spell and trap zone as continuous spell cards. Again, one of those cards that employs counters out of nowhere, but this is actually pretty good due to the fact that it is one of the most consistent ways you can actually generate back row presence within Crystal Beasts. So yeah, running 1 or 2 of these is usually very advisable, and it's also searchable, so yeah. Next up we have our final spell card, which is Rainbow Refraction, which is a quick play spell that says if a monster who you control, whose original name is Rainbow Dragon or Rainbow Dark Dragon, activated its effect this turn, special summon any number of Crystal Beast monsters with different names from your deck. It's very specific, and it's kind of slow due to the fact that you need to wait a turn in order to use it, due to the fact that Rainbow Dragons cannot activate their effects upon them being summoned. But hey, I guess it helps out that it's a quick play spell, and yeah, It's also unsearchable due to its name, so I would not recommend running more than one. And now, first of all, we have within the trap lineup, we have the Fusion Trap, Ultimate Crystal Magic. When your Crystal Beast monster is destroyed by battle, you can send 7 Crystal Beast cards with different names from your hand, deck, and face-up field to the graveyard to special summon one Ultimate Crystal Fusion monster from your extra deck. This summon is treated as a fusion summon. And if a face-up Ultimate Crystal monster you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard to place any number of Crystal Beast monsters from your graveyard face-up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spells. This is by far one of the most specific fusion requirements I have ever seen on a card. First of all, this thing was released in like middle of 2017, I guess, or 2018. And it has the effect that when a Crystal Beast monster is destroyed by battle specifically, that you can perform the fusion summon. And not to mention it dumps 7 Crystal Beasts from the deck only, meaning if the one-off Crystal Beast you need for the summon is already out of the deck, the card is borderline useless and you can basically wipe your ass with it and call it a day, because this is basically how the card works. Not to mention that you can, this is pretty much the only other way besides by employing polymerization and getting 7 Crystal Beasts in your hand to summon the original, to summon the Fusion Rainbow Dragon monster out. So yeah, this is a very specific utility, and the second effect is even more specific if we were being honest. So I would not advise running any more than one of these, because it's simply not worth all the setup and are needed to pull it off, and you're better off just summoning the Fusion Dragon by tributing the original one. So yeah, even though the both summoning conditions are kind of out there and stretched out. Next up we have Crystal RAIGEKI. Send 1 Crystal Beast card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard to target a card your opponent controls and destroy that target. Unlike the card that it is based on, it is not it is not that good, because it requires you to get rid of the back row pieces you're trying to hold on to activate some other better effects. So you might as well just run a RAIGEKI Break instead. Next up we have Crystal Pair. When a Crystal Beast monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, place 1 Crystal Beast monster from your deck to face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell card. Then you take no damage for the rest of this, no battle damage for the rest of this turn. It's a neat idea, letting a Crystal Beast you do not want in your back row to go to the graveyard and fetch back a monster from the deck that you want it to be in the back row, if you're again hunting for materials for Rainbow Dragon, or if you're simply need a Carbuncle for your next turn to further your plays. And the battle damage buff is kind of neat, although it does not matter in the slightest. So yeah, it's a decent also attack stopper if anything, since it also prevents battle damage. So yeah. Next up we have Counter Gem. Send all cards in your spell and trap zone to the graveyard to place as many Crystal Beast monsters as possible from your graveyard face up in your spell and trap zone as continuous spells, and during the end phase of this turn destroy all Crystal Beast cards you control. Why the hell would you want to even run it? Sure, you can massively swarm your back row to activate the Crystal Abundance or something, but the fact of the matter that it blows up all Crystal Beast cards like in the back row and in the monster zones is simply bafflingly terrible. It's not even searchable by the Archetype, so it makes me wonder why they decided to even adapt this from the anime as well. So next up we have our another normal spell, which is Last Resort. Activate only when your opponent's monster occurs an attack. So you can select 1 Ancient City and Rainbow Ruins from your deck to activate it, and if your opponent had an active field spell when this card is activated, they can draw 1 card. Run Metaverse, that's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to stick by it. Next up we have Crystal Conclave. It's a continuous trap that says once per turn, if a face-up Crystal Beast monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Crystal Beast monster from your deck, and you can send this card face-up card from your field to the graveyard to target a Crystal Beast card you control and a card on the opponent's field, and 1 card on the field, and return them to the hand, and you cannot activate these effects in the same turn. it's a pretty damn versatile removal because you can basically send this card to the graveyard and bounce back a Crystal Beast monster back to the hand in order to bounce back the opponent's card, which might be causing you problems. And if you bounce Pegasus and you haven't used up your normal summon yet, you can basically get another Crystal Beast in your spell and trap zone very easy. The other effect is also pretty decent, as it allows you to float into Crystal Beasts from your deck, which is always nice and appreciated. So yeah, Crystal Conclave is definitely worth running at 3 copies. Next up we have Rainbow Path. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, send 1 Crystal Beast card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard and target the attacking monster, negate the attack. Then you can add 1 Rainbow Dragon or Rainbow Dark Dragon from your deck to your hand. And it's a battle trap that uses your monsters in back row form to do stuff. It also searches Rainbow Dragon, which is kind of neat, so yeah, in slower formats it might have been worth running, but nowadays it's a bit too slow to do anything of significance. Next up we have our final Crystal Beast card, which is Rainbow Gravity. If you have 7 Crystal Beast cards with different names in your on your field and or in your graveyard, special summon 1 ultimate crystal monster from your deck or graveyard, ignoring its summoning conditions. This is actually pretty neat, as it actually allows you to resummon the fusion monster from the graveyard, at the cost of course having 7 Crystal Beast cards with different names in your field and or graveyard. And it's essentially another copy of Rainbow Dragon in your deck, and about as dead in your hand or field if you do not have the appropriate setup to bring them out. But still, if you really want to go as turbo as possible with the whole Rainbow Dragon shtick, I would really recommend running this. And now it's time for the crystal grades. In terms of consistency, it wasn't bad back in the day when they were introduced, and with the new support they have received nowadays, it has been significantly upgraded. So yeah, I feel they deserve a 3 out of 3 really in this category. Power only exists in form of Rainbow Dragon and Rainbow Dragon the Zenith Crystal Beast, but still that's still enough for a 3 out of 3 due to the fact how accessible Zenith Crystal Beast is and how easily you can summon the original Rainbow Dragon and the fusion Rainbow Dragon nowadays. Even though it can be quite a brick, sometimes it still hits the field reasonably often for it to matter. So 3 out of 3 in terms of power here. Comeback ability is actually pretty high considering the time period they originate from, and combined with the field spell and crystal abundance, they can pose a very significant threat for the opponent to basically cower in fear. And top decking Rainbow Dragon, of course, with the appropriate setup, can net you some decent results. So while it takes a while, it's certainly there. So I'll give them a 2 out of 3 in comeback ability. They literally have no other protection besides, well, the field spell protecting itself, and some other niche cards help out there, like Conclave can basically protect them, but that's still a very specific form of protection. So yeah, protection is the only thing they basically lack, so that's a 1 out of 3. And as for the versatility, well, it's perfectly respectable for an archetype from the GX era, along with the new support. They can actually provide some decent extra link boards if they are building a deck around it. The Rainbow Dragon builds can also put out a decent rank 10 monster on occasion. So yeah, it's a perfectly serviceable aspect of the archetype, so I cannot give it any less than a 2 out of 3. So yeah, I'm actually very glad how Crystal Beast's new support turned out, because I actually have some history with Crystal Beast, as I used to play the deck a whole lot of often when I was playing TAC Force 3 and slightly in TAC Force Special, but TAC Force Special was mostly Time Lords and Cliff Forts, so yeah, it's not as much, but it was my backup deck before I got every card I needed for my Time Lord and Clifford deck. So yeah, it's an archetype done right, and I would very much like to see some additional support, and I'll greet it with open arms in the next archetype rematch episode. And as for this episode, I am pretty much done with Crystal Beasts, and we only have 2 archetypes left to go for this year and for a very long time, since yeah, the business on this part of the channel has been kind of slow. So yeah, we only have also one archetype left in the Rada Marathon, so yeah, that means we have another sidetrack, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be taking a look at another archetype that will be brand new, somewhat, and then when we're done with that, we'll be finishing off the Rada Marathon with another GX era archetype. As for now, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. Be sure to check out my Patreon when you got the time. Maybe drop a few donations if you feel like it. And I'll see you all and have a good day. Peace.